This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's Doc and Jock. If you can hear the excitement in my voice, it's because we're going to be talking about football, soccer, World Cup, a lot of good things happening in Detroit. I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. I'm excited to spend the next half hour to 45 minutes with my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski, talking about everything in the world of Detroit sports. So much to get into, cuz what's going on? I know you're loving the Women's World Cup. I'm not into it as much as you are. I definitely saw the issues that some broadcasters had with the women celebrating, basically qualifying and having a real bad performance against Portugal, but still advancing. I'm curious. You seem basically I think you're upset because of the expectations potentially that you had for this women's team. And at least from what I've been reading, they're not living up to expectations of U.S. supporters and broadcasters.
I would say this World Cup, this Women's World Cup, has probably been one of the most disappointing. And this is the thing going into it. They expanded the field from 16 to 32 teams. So what you're getting is a very watered down quality of performance. So when you look at the group stage and you're watching these games, they're very boring. I was astonished at how bad the play was, because normally when the Women's World Cup goes on, it's very good. The reffing's very good. It's all very high quality. The reffing has been awful. The play on the pitch has been abysmal. And that's not even talking about what the U.S. has done. That's just overall, in general. So I've been really disappointed with a lot of this. When you sit back and you kind of look at it, well, you're like, okay, well, they expanded it to 32 teams. So you basically have allowed in 16 more teams that have really watered this down. And it has shown. You've seen it. You've been able to watch this. Normally when I'm watching these games, I'm so into them. I'm engrossed. I watch all of them. I have numerous teams that I'm a fan of that I like to watch. It's not just the U.S. I like watching Italy. I do enjoy watching Spain. Sweden is a very good team. I enjoy watching them. Japan is a machine. So there are a lot of teams that I enjoy watching. Even Great Britain. England is a fantastic team. I do enjoy watching them as well. So watching what I've seen thus far, getting through the group stages, I've been incredibly disappointed. And then you look at the play that the U.S. women have put out there. It's been awful. Their first game against Vietnam, I watched the entire thing. They were expected to go in there and put up 5, 6, 7. The over-under was 8 goals that game. They put up 3. And you're like, okay, cool. Watching the game, you're like, they look like they're a little bit nervous, like they're playing a little bit tight. First game jitters, maybe. We'll see what happens. They should have absolutely dominated Vietnam. Vietnam legitimately should not be in this competition. They beat them 3-0, and honestly, it kind of felt like they almost escaped, right? Like they scored a couple of goals that they probably shouldn't have. You then fast forward to the Netherlands game, which was incredibly frustrating. Netherlands outplayed them up and down. Netherlands beat them up. They did not deserve to walk away from that game with a draw. They were lucky enough to end up leaving with a draw. And you're like, okay, cool. They don't seem to have any fight. They don't seem to necessarily want to be here. They don't have the ability to want to win is what it feels like. It just feels like they're very flat. Like there's no juice. And this is a team that is trying to make history. This is a team that has the ability to make history. This is also a team that is incredibly dominant at this stage. You have to realize there have been eight Women's World Cups, and the United States has won 4 of them. They have finished second in 1 of them, and that was when they lost to Japan back in 2011 in a shootout. They lost 3-2. And then the other times, they have finished third in the other 3 years. So this is a team that has basically made it to the finals every single time this competition has been held. And for some reason, this year, it just feels like they don't even want to be there. You then look at the Portugal game. And look, Portugal is a decent team, right? I wouldn't put them in the class of Vietnam. But I would say that Portugal would generally be a team, if you were to go back to the old way where it was just 16 teams, Portugal would be a team that would be one of the last teams in and one of the first teams out. They should not have been able to hang with the U.S. The U.S. couldn't get anything going. The U.S. were lucky that they escaped that game with a draw. They really should have lost that game. You go back to that 90th minute in that game, there was a ball off the post, and everybody was beat clean. And then after that, you look at the celebration. You look at this team just looking like they are happy to be able to advance. This is a team that regularly rolls into this competition, dominates. They take names, they take numbers, and they beat you up. And they exude their excellence. This team does not have the ability to score. This team does not look like they necessarily want to be there. This team looks flat. This team looks like they are all out of sorts. It looks like their head coach is afraid to make a move. He starts making substitutions, and it's always way too late. Like, you're going in at halftime, and you're like, okay, look, if I'm the head coach, what am I doing? I'm changing up our formation a little bit. I'm moving a couple of players around, and I'm subbing some people in. This guy is waiting to the 87th minute to sub players in. It's too late at that point. At that point, you're just looking to hold on to a game. You need to be subbing these players in at halftime, or you need to be subbing them in within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the second half. Their head coach looks like he is in over his head. Like, he should not be doing this. Alex Morgan has been a complete and utter disappointment. There is no reason she should be playing the position she's playing. She is much better as a striker on the wing, or as a midfielder playing on the wing. She does a much better job providing that pressure, that forechecking pressure, and then getting the ball into the middle to somebody who can actually score. Which, again, a big issue with this team is nobody seems like they can score on this team. You also have some of the old heads like a Megan Rapinoe, who she's basically being brought out of mothballs and rolled out onto the field. Like, if you're not going to produce anything, or if you're not going to be there to help this team, I don't know why you're taking up a roster spot. And look, maybe that's an issue with the coach. Maybe it's an issue with her fitness. Maybe it's just an issue of she's been there, she's done that, and she's not excited for this round of play. Well, here's the thing. You've got to win this in order to get into the next round. And here's the thing. They've done such a bad job. They're going up against a really good Sweden team. Sweden annihilated Italy the other day, 5-0. Like, just absolutely decimated Italy. This Sweden team is I think they're third in the world. You're supposed to be first. You honestly look like you are somewhere between 12 and 15. Like, you don't even deserve to be out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they show up in these next couple of rounds if they make it that far. They really do have a big test going up against Sweden. Again, I've been incredibly disappointed. I've been incredibly frustrated. I've been yelling at my TV. Look, I don't think this team deserves to go on to the next round. I feel like this team should have lost in the group stage, and we should be done with the U.S. in this World Cup. They're lucky enough to advance. They need to show something. It has been absolutely abysmal, and I'm embarrassed. I'm absolutely embarrassed because I came on this podcast with you a couple of weeks ago talking about how excited I was for it, how good the play is, how good everything is. There's been really nothing good about this World Cup. There's a couple cool stories like Jamaica making it. They've made it past the group stage. You have a couple of teams that haven't been here before that were able to get in and get some experience doing it. But again, you've expanded the field, and that is why. When you expand the field, you water down the product. So the product has been completely watered down. The reffing has been awful, and the play has been very good. And look, if I was going to give you a betting tip, if I had like an extra $100 to throw down on something, I would throw $100 down on Japan winning the whole damn thing. Oh, I watched the game with Japan. I think it was, I don't remember who Japan played. Anyways, Japan just is an absolute machine. This is how Japan plays. Everything is like a calculated risk, right? They do a very good job of playing defense. They will clog up the back half of the field and really make you work. They will allow you shots, but all these shots are coming from bad angles, so the goaltender has an easy time making a stop. And then what they'll do is they will pick and choose when they strike, and when they strike, they are so efficient. This is a team that does not foul a lot. They hardly foul at all. If you watched any of these other games, there is a lot of fouling going on. If you watch the U.S.-Portugal game, there was a ton of fouling going on. When Japan plays a very clean game. It is a very efficient game. Japan is a team that will get into the box, I don't know, maybe 6-7 times a game, and they will score anywhere from 3 to 5 times when they're only getting in there 6 or 7 times a game. That's how efficient they are. It's well-placed balls. It's well-calculated risks. It is fun to watch them because they are so damn talented. If I had money to bet on it, take this to the bank and go bet on Japan. I think Japan wins this whole damn thing. I don't think U.S. gets past Sweden. I've been completely embarrassed. Embarrassed.
Wow.
Let's talk about football.
Yeah. American football. Yeah, I'll just say this. Adam spent 10 minutes ranting about female soccer. That's where it's at. And look, it's the World Cup, and it's important, and there's expectations. And my only question was going to be, does this give you doubts that they're going to win it all? So now that I'll say this, just to throw the little devil's advocate, just to say this. Now that it's the group stage is done, sometimes you do play to the level of the competition. The females have always kind of shown that they kind of rise to the occasion, and maybe, hopefully the opportunity presents itself to face Japan, creme de la creme, and play at a high level. But I do think that, the women will elevate their performance on the pitch, and they'll step it up. And I'll take I'll take umbrage with the fact that you don't think that the women who have been dominant looking for history, I think that they kind of are easing their way into the tournament, knowing that the level of competition, like you said, has been watered down. I think they'll step it up. They've always kind of shown the ability to rise to the occasion. And now when it's this stage where I think it's one and done, you got to step it up, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait now to see how this progresses, because now that we're in the group stage is done, now I'm going to tune into the next game. I think it's Sunday morning early, so hopefully the opportunity presents itself for the ladies to impress Adam, because he is not impressed in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all. I've been severely disappointed.
Yeah, and so now to transition to Lions training camp, it has been crazy, because in the last 5 days. Every day is like a whole other movie that shakes out. But right now, it's crazy in that the story that's dominating everything is Jameson Williams. And I understand, but I want to say this. I'm not going to rant about soccer. I'm going to rant about this. When people, and I hope that the listeners of this podcast and those that read All Lions, yes, we do add opinion, and yes, we do add our take on things. But what we don't do is try to slant the narrative in such a way to purposely mislead people. And here's what's going on, which is crazy, is that Lions fans are up their ass reading stupid aggregated Twitter sites like Dove Kleiman and NFL Rumors and NFL Notifies. And guys, I'll say this, okay? And I don't hate anybody that tries to get into the Twitter game and does things, but I'll say this. If you see somebody that just basically takes other information and puts their spin on it and you react to it, you're just giving credence to what that person's trying to do. So I'll say this, not to play the, I'm the insider kind of thing, but I'll say this. You got to look at everything in context. Like if Jameson Williams gets a 50-yard bomb, also ask yourself, was it in a 7-on-7 drill? Was it 1-on-1? And I'll just be flat out honest. From what I saw on Wednesday, they set Jameson Williams up to succeed because of all the heat that he took. Because there's no way in hell that Cam Sutton's going to let this man fly past him 7 yards full speed ahead in a limited defensive kind of practice. So, look, Jameson Williams is dropping the football. And that's the part that Dan Campbell, I think he sent a message to Jameson in the media. It was crazy. And I could be wrong. I could be doing the conspiracy theorist thing. But guys, look, let's start with the premise that Jameson Williams is a good football player, but he's raw. So we're not going to say he's a bust after 5 practices. We're not going to say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread after one 50-yard bomb. What we're going to say is that from the perspective of him being a first-round pick, from the perspective of the team investing and trading up for him, giving him $19 million, I do not really, it's a little bit concerning that he's dropping the football each and every practice. And on Wednesday, he did it in front of Dan Campbell, right in a row. So remember that some sites that have the word, happiness in it, or, kind of fan sites, typically that are hardcore fan sites, that is a niche where you can kind of cut out some of the sentence. And there's other sites that will go exceptionally hard with a hot take. I always say look in the middle, read everything that's out there, but please don't read the Dove Klymans and poo-poo on everybody that actually goes there, stands there for 2 hours, and objectively looks at what's going on. Come on, guys. That's funny, and that is insulting to me for standing there and sweating and getting 50,000 interviews for you guys and podcasts and trying to get you the best coverage. Listen, hot takes are one thing, but for those that just take information and put their spin on it and you guys then lump everybody into it, that's crazy. So let's have the debate, and I'm very curious as to your take. My concern level is at a 6.5 out of 10 because it's repeated. And Dan Campbell, I think you got to read between the lines. There is no way in hell a head coach comes out and says, well, I just don't know if Jameson Williams, pass catching is ever going to be elite. That was a message, period. I don't care who says anything. That was a message that he hopefully somehow hopes that Jameson gets to use as motivation. Because if you have a football player that's a first-round pick and he can't be an elite pass catcher, that's crazy. So I think that Jameson...
Yeah, then what the hell did you draft him for,
Exactly. I think that it's a concern, but I don't think it's a conclusive situation that means that Jameson's a bust. But we have to talk about it. And the other thing I will rant about is you can't not tell me to not write about Jameson Williams. For those small segment of people that say, are there other things you cover? Read the 1,000-word reports I do every day. 1,000 words. It takes me an hour after practice, after all the hard work, after your brain is swelled with information. I try to put out 1,000 words on different players like Josh Paschal, Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, one-on-one interviews I'm doing, things that you see. So, yes, I have to talk about Jameson Williams, especially on a day when Jameson Williams talks to the media. What are you guys trying to do here? If 6 other sites are writing about Jameson Williams on a media day and I skip it, I will not be employed at the place that I'm employed at. So trust me, guys, after 10 years working with Adam, picking his brain, knowing what he brought to the table, learning from him, learning what great producers do, the one thing you can give me credit for is knowing what topics I think people will like to talk about. And at Detroit Podcast, bantering and having fun, the one thing you can give me credit for, you may say, about my in-depth knowledge of, schemes and all that kind of stuff. The one thing you can say is the stuff that you want to read will be at All Lions, and the stuff you want to listen to will be featured at Detroit Podcast. So it's kind of funny that the coverage of people and the way in people, the fandom is good. I get it. It doesn't bother me. But when you start lumping people that say, well, you guys are only covering Jameson one way. No, we're covering what we see. If Jameson Williams drops the football, I'm going to tell you where, when, how, what I thought about it. I thought his first practice after padded was not good. Wednesday was better. And I hope that he takes the message that he got sent by the coach to be a serious look at improving. Because basically he's like a Ferrari, but right now he's playing kind of like a GMC Terrain.
So here's the thing. He is probably the most polarizing Lion that we have on this team right now. Normally that position is reserved for the quarterback. I think everybody at this point is kind of on board with Jared Goff. JMO is the most polarizing guy. You get a 1,001 reactions when you bring his name up. Right. You have people who absolutely love him. You have people who absolutely want to bury him and are using the B word as in bust. You've got people like us that we're kind of gauging our opinion and kind of taking what we see and what we know, and we're trying to put this into words to kind of convey this message. Look, I think what you have here is you've got a stallion, right? You've got a guy who can run like the wind, a guy who can be transformative. And I think he's a guy who believes a lot of his own hype. And that's fine if you're able to do it. The problem is you haven't really been able to see it on the field. He hasn't really done it on the field. And then you look at what has happened in these practices. When you get frustrated, and mind you, you are a first-round pick. You're a guy that this team traded up to go get, and gave up some assets when they could have had another guy who looks like he could be a Pro Bowl player. Instead, they went up, got you, and you're getting frustrated by undrafted free agents, undrafted free agent rookies, and you're going to swing on them in the middle of a practice? Like, at a certain point, you got to talk about this. Like, this has to be brought up. You have to look at it. These are situations that are unfolding. And again, Jameson Williams seems to constantly put himself in spots. Not saying that they're horrible spots, not saying that they're good spots, but he constantly seems to find himself in situations, whether it's lighting off fireworks at 1 o'clock in the morning, whether it's being at Coney Islands at 3 in the morning in Detroit, whether it's going to the East Side, giving money away, whether it's just doing things that are kind of ridiculous, like swinging on a teammate in the middle of a practice. And look, I understand it's hot. I understand you get heated. I understand that you're frustrated. These things happen. I get that. I think the swinging on a teammate is probably one of the least of your concerns because, again, these things happen. You can learn from these things. But dropping footballs, that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Not running the right route, that's a bit of an issue. Not being on the same page with your quarterback. Now you're going into year 2. You're going into year 2. You should have been there for a lot of different throwing sessions with your quarterback in the offseason. You should have been working on things, getting yourself in position to play. Oh, I didn't even bring up getting suspended for another 6 games because you were gambling at the team facility. Like, there's always something. It's always like this weird cloud that kind of follows him. You know, if you ever watch Charlie Brown, you've got Pigpen, who's got this dirt cloud around him. This is Jameson Williams. That is Jameson Williams. There's always this cloud around him. It's always these things, these situations that are following him. And look, it becomes hard when you haven't even played a full season in the NFL. You haven't even played half a season in the NFL. You haven't even played a quarter of a season in the NFL. And you're going into your second year, and you're going to miss the first 6 games. And you've done all these things that I've already named. It becomes really hard to kind of tolerate some of these antics. And then it becomes really hard to justify you not being able to necessarily do your job at a level that everybody is expecting you to do your job. And that's really what it is. There's an expectation. You were drafted incredibly high. We've seen what you were able to do in college. And so now there is an expectation when you come to the pros to be able to perform. And the performance just hasn't been there. The performance hasn't been there. And a lot of times what has surrounded JMO has been highly questionable, and that's a bit of an issue. And look, that's why people are going to talk about this. That's why you're going to write an article about this. That's why people are going to tweet about this. That's why people are going to vent frustrations about this, because these things shouldn't be happening. If you're Jameson Williams and you did all those things I just named, you should be showing up to camp with your mind focused, with your body ready to go, and you should be showing out at practice, because honestly, this is as much game time as you're going to get for the next, I think we've got 3 weeks of preseason football. We've got another week of training camp before we get there. This is what you're going to get for basically the next 10 weeks.
Yes.
This is what you're getting for the next 10 weeks. The next 2.5 months, you're sitting on the shelf. Like, you're the shiny toy that this GM brought here and bought. And you know what? You can't play with you again. Can't touch you. Can't do anything with you. You just got to sit there and collect dust for the next 2.5 months. So when you show up, this is your game time. Practice like you're playing.
Yes.
Show up, do your job. This is a job. This is like real life. This is what you get paid to do. You were brought here for a reason. And here's the other thing. I don't know if he understands this. I don't know who his agent is, but man, I would love to sit down and talk to his agent, because his agent needs to explain to him, you got yourself suspended for a gambling situation. Basically, your contract is no longer guaranteed. This team could essentially just cut you, and you're not getting any of that money that you thought you were going to get. You need to show up. You need to perform. You need to constantly earn your spot. And the way this team is built, the culture of this team is every day you are earning your spot. If you're not earning it, somebody's going to take it from you. And it just kind of feels like he's walking in expecting it to be there. Like, maybe this is why he left Ohio State. Because at Ohio State, they had 3 dog-ass wide receivers. He was the 4th one. Maybe he didn't like that competition, so he went to Alabama. And yeah, you performed at Alabama, but maybe he can't stand the competition level, because at Ohio State, I mean, you have some studs. You have some absolute stallions. Look at what these dudes are doing in the league right now. And he was part of a set of 4 that he ended up rolling out, and they became a triplet. So it is frustrating to watch a guy with this much talent act like a bonehead, and that's what this is.
Yeah, it's crazy, because that's what I look at it, and all you got to do is just say, look, We are a Detroit-based podcast that covers the Lions for also the Arena Group and SI. So what that means is when we look at Jameson Williams from the perspective of what he can do better, it's not because we want to drive him out of town. It's because of the fact that we look at it like a coach or a general manager would when they watch film. They don't go, Jameson, come on, dude, stop dropping the ball. They kind of will add a little bit of cuss words and be like, get your ass in the right spot. And they coach him up hard because you care, because you want the player to exceed. I want Jameson Williams to be a Hall of Famer. I want him to be considered and covered like Tyreek Hill. I want him to be covered like Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase had the same situation. So I'm hoping that it's like that, where it's slow a little bit his first go around in an official training camp, and he's going to pick it up when the bright lights are on. But again, and you also got to remember, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's dominating, playing well every time he's out there, he walks off the field emphatically, and he tells the reporters, practice how you play. And that's what he meant, is to say that he's going hard and making plays. So I do think that Jameson will eventually, with more and more practices, hoping that he stays healthy, that he is going to shine and take a step forward. And the good thing is, Dan Campbell said on Wednesday, Jameson's going to get a shit ton of reps in these preseason games. So we'll have an opportunity to see what it looks like when Nate Sudfeld tosses him the ball. Adrian Martinez hopefully go off a series or two here or there. But let's see what Jameson does in the preseason, what he does in joint practices when there's some competition against other NFL teams and other NFL defensive backs. But guys, remember too, when you see 7-on-7, when you see individual reps with one cornerback, yeah, he's going to make catches. He's not a bum. He's tall and fast. But what we're saying is, also today on Wednesday, they put him in a situational position on the second team. And it was a critical situation with like 5 seconds left. That's what the situation was. 5 seconds left, needing about 10 yards to get into field goal range. Sudfeld targets Jameson right in the middle of the field, and Will Harris is right there giving great coverage, swats the ball away, doesn't make the play. So in team situations that are critical, that are impactful football plays, not just competing one-on-one, it hasn't been there. He hasn't taken ownership. And that's juxtaposed with Amon-Ra, who it's breaking news when he drops the ball once. So that's the kind of situation we're looking at. Amon-Ra makes it look easy, and it's breaking news when he drops it once, whereas Jameson's dropped 2-3 balls a game.
It's funny because you bring up Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? These are two guys who play the same exact position, but are completely different players,
yes.
Completely different mentalities.
Yes, completely.
And obviously they were taken at different spots. Like
yes.
there are similarities, but they are so completely different. If you could have a team chock full of Amon-Ra St. Browns, you take it every day.
Twice on Sunday.
Every day you would take it. Yeah. This is a guy who shows up every day with a chip on his shoulder, ready to work, packs his lunch, brings his hard hat, and is like, I'm punching in, let's go.
Yes.
And to me, it just kind of feels like J-Mo just kind of coasts through the door, and he's like, I'm here.
Yeah. So
what do you want me to do?
But I'll say this.
It's not how it goes, man.
I got to ask you this. What did you make of Monday's physical practice? Because now you realize that Jahmyr Gibbs took a big hit, a shot from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who wasn't shot. Like Monday's practice was crazy. That's the practice Adam's talking about where Starling Thomas is getting underneath Jameson's skin. He was jawing excessively. The defense as a whole brought the swagger. I think it was a message probably from Glenn that day, like, hey, today's our day. And because it's ahead of a day off. And then you had unfortunately, you had on Monday later in that same practice, you had a tight end who unfortunately, goes down with injury. And it's so unfortunate. Shane Zylstra is a player that was battling injuries before, worked his way back, had a nice game against the Panthers, and now he's basically lost for the 23 season when a young player is way aggressive and takes a diving shot that has those shots that you could imagine piss off a lot of players that you see in the league where you go, whoa, 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 nothing below the waist, dude. Make the contact and wrap the guy up, but you don't go down and take a shot at someone's legs and upend the guy and submarine him and cause him to. But that's the fine line, because while I don't want to see injury, I'll be honest, probably my favorite day covering the Lions at a 2-hour practice was Monday, because that's what I love to see. I love to see a defense where they're like, even if it's a completed play in a normal rep, Jack Campbell's trying to rip the ball out. Aiden Hutchinson's trying to push forward. Taylor Decker and Aiden are getting into it. The defense, whenever they make a play, swat the ball, they're in their face. It was hard hitting. It was football. and C.J. Gardner-Johnson just, bam, whacked Jahmyr Gibbs. The problem is, this is the fine line in that you lost a player for the season in Shane Zylstra. I don't think it's that much of an impactful loss when you have Mitchell and Laporta, but I just go, man, what a fine line if you're a coach, because I would love practices like that. You have a Monday practice where it's balls to the wall. Now, here's the crazy part. Campbell runs a very player-friendly situation. That's why players are going to love coming here. You have a day, you had a Sunday that was, in essence, a walkthrough where it's half speed. And so I felt really bad for the fans that came out Sunday, where basically a walkthrough is it's 25% speed and you're just going through the extremely slow motion of be where you need to be and there's no tackling. Monday is balls to the wall, 2 hours of physicality, like all out. Tuesday's a day off, but Wednesday, the defensive intensity is way down again. And I'm like, and me and Dave Burkett talked about it and said, I was kind of surprised it's a little bit lax today, but he's trying to protect the players, especially after kind of the injuries that take their toll. It piles up. You realize they don't go balls to the wall. And then this week, Friday and Sunday, I don't have to go back out there either. So Friday's another walkthrough for the team. So very much an interesting situation where it's like 2 days reasonable and then a day off to rest and recuperate. So it's very interesting. What do you make of a defensive nasty practice that you saw and read about on Monday?
Well, first off, I think what he does is smart, because if you're not getting those live reps, those hits, what happens is you go into the preseason and then you get into the regular season, and that's where you see a lot of those soft tissue injuries, where you see the hamstring pulls, you see the quad pulls, you see the guys with the oblique strains. So you need to get that. They call it a callus. You have to go out there and you have to bang. You have to bump around. You got to get your body used to being hit. Mind you, these guys haven't been hit since January. So like now we're into August. It's been basically 8 months since these guys have been rattled a little bit. So you've got to hit a little bit. So I think the way he kind of staggers his weeks and kind of sets up practice, yeah, it's incredibly player friendly, right? But you've got to have days where you're hitting. You have to have days where you're bumping, because you've got to build up that hard shell. So when you get into the season, you're not falling apart. The last thing you want to do is you want to lose a season because you've got all these guys on IR because you just didn't do the things that were needed to be done in training camp and in the preseason. So I like the way he does it. I think with the defense going out there and playing nasty, I think what you have here speaks to what this organization did in the offseason. Going out, grabbing veterans, grabbing guys who played on teams where they had nasty defenses, right? You look at Pittsburgh, Cam Sutton came from there. It's generally a very nasty defense. You look at C.J. Gardner-Johnson. This is a guy who laid one of the most infamous hits when he played for the New Orleans Saints in a playoff game. This is a guy who played on a team that went to the Super Bowl last year with the Eagles. This is a guy who played on an Eagles defense that was highly rated. You look at what they've done with a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, right? He played on a pretty nasty defense at the University of Michigan. They were a pretty good defense if you think back. So they've gone out. Even Jack Campbell. Look at a guy like Jack Campbell, another guy who was drafted who did a ton of things on a defense that is regularly feared in college football. So you go out and you grab these guys, and it's this mentality. And I think what you're seeing at practice is the mentality coming through. It's these guys saying, look, this isn't last year. We're not going to get pushed around. Yeah, we figured a couple things out late in the season, but last year was last year. We're bringing an entire new mindset. And you know what? Iron sharpens iron. And that's what they're going for. They're trying to make that offense. Look, a lot of talk about this offense and how good it is and how good it can be, right? I don't think we've seen the best of this offense yet. So you've got a offense that is highly touted nationally around the league. Everybody's talking about it. I was watching a couple different Cow and Cowherd videos today, and I was listening to them when I was driving home. And a lot of praise for the Detroit Lions. A lot, especially that offense. That offense is always brought up. So now if you're that defense, you're kind of been the thing that kind of held this team back a little bit last year. And there are too many guys with too much pride to say, we're the reason we're not winning. And that's what you've got on the defensive side of the ball. You got a lot of guys with a lot of pride who are ready to hit you in the mouth. And that's what they're doing. Again, iron sharpens iron. They're trying to make that offense as good as it can be, and they're trying to make themselves as good as they can be. I don't have a problem with the defense hitting. Now, if we kind of break this down and we go into the play that Shane Zylstra got hurt on, I have a bit of a problem with that, right? You at the same time, you want to hit and you want to be physical, but you have to be smart about it. There kind of has to be a line, and you basically have to walk right up to the line, pull out, piss on the line, but not cross over that line. You know, you have to do everything you can do to a certain extent, but don't cross over, because when you cross over that line and you basically throw yourself like a missile at a guy's leg and you basically shatter everything in his knee, you're hurting your team. Like, awesome. You made a big hit, and I'm sure your defensive coordinator is excited that you made a big hit. But now your defensive coordinator has to deal with, well, crap, I just hurt our team because our third tight end is now done for the year. So now next man up, obviously, but crap, that was a bit of a weapon that we had. This was a guy who was really familiar with the offense, had a couple of really good games last year, was a guy that we knew we could count on. Now you've got to figure something else out. And so you can't have that happening, right? You can't have self-inflicted wounds, and that's what that is. So while I don't have a problem with the physicality, and while I don't have a problem with the team beating each other up, because again, I believe it is necessary to get ready for the football season, you have to do it in such a way where you're still trying to take care of each other's body. That's why you go in, you wrap up. That's why you go through these tackling drills. That's why they have these different camps to help teach you how to tackle. So you're not blowing dudes' knees out and basically crippling your team. So I'm excited for what I'm hearing coming out of training camp, right? I'm excited for the nastiness. I'm excited for the edginess. I'm excited for the defense being in this offense's face and making this offense earn it. Because, look, this was a top 5 offense last year. So if this defense can hang with a top 5 offense, what's that tell you? It's going to be a pretty good defense. That's what I was telling you a couple weeks ago. I think this team's in a really good spot because I think this defense is going to be so much better than it was last year. So I think this team overall is going to be much further ahead. But at the same point, you do have to be concerned because you also have guys like Penny Sewell dealing with a concussion. You got Shane Zylstra on IR with a knee injury. So you got to be careful because you don't want your guys hurt. How concerned are you? Because Penny Sewell has missed a couple of practices dealing with a concussion. And you and I both know concussions aren't something to play with. I'm going to give you a little story here. I was playing hockey, I think it was probably 3 weeks ago. I got turned around a little bit. I had my head down. I spun around, lifted my head up, and when I did, I had a dude come flying through me like a freight train. And he was not looking to stop. He was not looking to make a play on the puck. He was looking to drive through me, and he did. I thought he broke my jaw. I laid on the ground, and I couldn't. I was trying to get my bearings. I couldn't figure things out. You fast forward, that was on a Thursday night. You fast forward to Sunday. I ended up slipping and falling down a flight of stairs, and I bounced my head off of the stairs. And just when I was starting to kind of turn a corner with that concussion, I ended up just re-aggravating it all. So when you're a defensive or when you're an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, you are constantly bumping. You're constantly bumping heads. You're constantly bumping bodies. And there's a lot of whiplash that happens. So I think it's a bit of a concern for a guy like Penny Sewell this early in camp dealing with a concussion. And now he's got to go through the rest of camp hoping he doesn't get another one because when they stack on top of each other, that's when you get a lot of problems. So keeping him out, I think, is the best thing. But I do think there's a bit of a concern with this guy who is an elite right tackle. This is a guy who could be an elite left tackle in this league dealing with a concussion this early on. Yeah. Where's your concern level at for Penny Sewell?
Yeah, we got to see him on Wednesday. Look good. I understand missing practice, and I think the biggest thing that people are concerned about is once you have that first situation, then it makes it that much easier to get the other one. So real fast though, dude, are you like a 70-year-old lady or something? You're falling downstairs? Like, what is it? You got like little toys around the house, pet toys? How are you falling downstairs?
I don't know if I ever told you. So like, it was probably about 6, maybe 8 months ago. Maybe probably longer than that. Might have been about a year ago at this point. I ended up tearing a disc in my back,
Yeah.
between my L5 and my S1. Like I ripped it in half. So I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And what happens is every now and then that what's left of that disc will kind of compress the nerve.
Oh.
And I was having nerve pain the entire day. And it like my right leg basically just went out on me. Like just the nerve was getting pinched and my right leg went out. I went to go take a step down my mom's stairs going into her basement.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel my leg. My leg just went out on me. And when it went out on me, I just fell down the stairs.
Okay.
So
well,
that's why.
If we're going to share, so I'll send you the video. You can laugh. I take care of the pool here in the backyard and like just casual, it's raining and sometimes the pool will get filled too high. So, I just had an umbrella and I'm walking back. It's raining. And when it gets too high, you want to just take a hose and there's a drain dedicated. So you take the hose, you stick it in the pool and throw the other side to the drain and it'll drain it out. It takes like 5 minutes because of the way the filter will push the water into the drain. So I'm walking normally. All of a sudden, I plant with my left foot and a second later I'm in the pool. And I'm like, I scraped my right leg and I had my 2 phones, had to do the rice thing, bled everywhere. And I was like, oh no, the camera's caught it. It's funny because I'm carrying the umbrella. It's because I'm carrying an umbrella and I slipped and it was like, boom, it was down, left leg in the water and just all the way in. So I'll send it because I got it. And it's just, stuff happens. It's funny. And that's why I was telling my wife, I am not meant for manual labor. So, but I'm not paying the $80 a week.
No truer statement has ever been spoken.
Right. I am not meant. When you see this video, you're going to be like, that dude should not be doing any manual labor. Use his voice, use his brain, because that dude made walking look difficult. You're going to laugh. I'll send it. I needed about 3 weeks to process the embarrassment of what the hell I did. So I'll send it. It's funny. And you can get a laugh out of it. But yeah, it happens, man. I understand. That's why I say we're talking about just normal walking injuries. These football players are getting manhandled, and we expect a lot from them. But because it's a competitive camp. It's a camp, I think, right now with pads. It's fair to say the defense is winning. They're more aggressive. They're kind of trying to punk out the offense. But the offense led by Amon-Ra. Gibbs is looking okay. Still battling a little bit of drops too, a little bit. He's putting it on the ground. And then, guys, too, the best part is I'm so happy that they open it up to fans who they were groaning on Wednesday when Jameson dropped the ball. So they get to see everything in context, hopefully, to see everything that goes on. But I would say right now the fairest assessment is the defense is winning. The rookies are really performing at a good level. Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Broderick Martin is the biggest riser because I don't want to elevate the hype train. But Brian Branch, thank you, Nick Saban. Oh, my God, cuz.
He looks like he's ready to go, right?
He's ready to go. He got involved in the first team on Wednesday. He's around the ball. And I think I told you last week, and I'm going to say it again, that dude, I think, is chomping at the bit to just go flying shoulder into somebody. I think he's going to levy a big hit on somebody and dislodge the football. I feel like it's going to be a special play. Like, the guy gets it. He's smart. He understands it. I think it's going to be hard to keep. I think he's going to beat out Will Harris pretty easily if they get into these games and he can translate it well and really perform. I think right now it's even with Will Harris based on Harris' experience and his versatility. But Brian Branch, each and every day, swatting the ball in the right spot, looking like a player that knows what he's doing, understands everything. He says he eats, sleeps, and breathes football like Jack Campbell. I was like, man, you can't take your eyes off him. My sheet, I write numbers all over it. It's just 32, 32, 32 in every breakup. Trying to make plays, trying to get in the mix. The other person to be happy about is Kirby Joseph. 31 has always been written down. So I think the defense is winning right now, and I can't wait. Hopefully Thursday's practice, when this drops, is another practice that's balls to the wall because I want to see best on best, and I want to see the competition. So the defense right now is winning slightly, but Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs did their rookie stuff, which is always fun to talk about. What did you make of the reports that came out with Jahmyr Gibbs doing some R&B action and Jack Campbell playing some Hank Williams Jr.? I thought it was fun. I think that everybody liked it. I spoke with Malcolm Rodriguez after practice. He said that the team loved it. He did the performance, and I think that he did what I think everybody wanted him to do, was loosen up a little bit, because Jack Campbell's a machine. Like, the dude doesn't smile. Like, I'm a little bit of afraid. I'm a little bit of afraid of like asking him a question now after my first one. My first question to him in a media scrum was, like usually it's kind of like a layup. Like, hey, you're going up against the offense every day. You're watching film of them. You're going up against them. What's the ceiling for the offense this year? He's like, I'm gonna let Dan Campbell handle that. The blessing is that we just keep our feet to the ground every single day and we handle our business. And I was like, okay, Jack, no problem. I only posted a video. I did some deep analysis. I'm like, what kind of answer was that? Dude, Jahmyr Gibbs was.
Have you watched Inside the Den yet? I know you have.
Yes, I saw the whole thing.
So
yes.
like you've seen him interacting with Chris Spielman.
Yeah.
He's like a cutout of Chris Spielman.
Yes, it's serious. And Jahmyr Gibbs is like that too. He's much better with the fans when they ask for selfies. But I asked him like, hey man, Sam Laporta told us like after practice he spends an hour, he kind of decompresses, hangs out a little bit, and then gets back into film. Hey, in some free time, what do you do? Jahmyr Gibbs goes, I hang in the training room. And that was his answer. I said, okay. I said, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch give very fast answers to their questions. I've talked to both. And
you didn't ask what his favorite lift was? You should ask him what his favorite lift was. That should have been your follow-up.
What is no, I'm
What's
not.
your favorite lift?
No, not I'm not.
He's like squats.
No, not in the gym. I meant say like the room where you lay down and get your like taped up and the trainer the
training room.
The training room, yeah. But I meant to say, and sometimes because you're so far away and people are trying to talk over you, I should have said to say back at the hotel or you know what I mean. So it's just they're warming up. It's fun with the rookies. Colby Sorsdahl is a little bit more talkative. Josh Pascal, the second-year guy, is a lot more talkative. So it's interesting to get that sense. What'd you make of the rookie performance songs, man? It was funny.
Look, I'm not surprised by Jack Campbell. Like Jack Campbell's, that's Jack Campbell. That sounds about right. Now I was surprised about Jahmyr Gibbs. His song was Mario's "Let Me Love You." I was a little bit surprised by that. I wouldn't think that would be something a football player would do inside of a room of like 83 other football players.
Right.
So look, I think that's great because it shows how comfortable he is. It shows where he's at, where he's not afraid to go out and kind of embarrass himself a little bit because I would think that would be a little bit embarrassing. And even if it's not embarrassing, that just shows you how self-confident he is, where he's like, whatever, man, that's my jam. So I think it's awesome. I think this does raise a bit of an interesting question, though. What would be your song if you had to perform in the rookie camp? What would you pick?
It's great, too, because I feel, I guess I wouldn't do a song because the way in which I would do it, and I'm going to send it to you. I don't know if you've seen it. Terry Foster commented on it, maybe after he's seeing my post, but I would try to tell a joke. And there's a joke that a rookie told on Doug Peterson that was hilarious.
Yes, I heard that one.
Yes, it was so funny talking about basically that he didn't get to be the world's record holder with the smallest dick because they go, who the hell is Doug Peterson? And every time it gets to the punchline, I die laughing. So I would try to tell jokes. Actually, what I would do is, if there's also a viral skit, I don't know if you've seen it, where Will Compton has Mike Vrabel basically laying out on the table there where he has the film and he's trying to act like coach. So I would probably just do Dan Campbell. I just would try to do him where maybe Dan Campbell's spitting chew.
Got a lot of man.
Got a lot of man. Yep. Exactly. And it try to make the crowd laugh or tell jokes. So that's what I do. What'd you do if they ask you to go in front of a team and try to and do something? What would be your skill?
So I know we've talked about it before. I'm not a very good singer, but I do love boy bands, and I would sing New Kids on the Block Step by Step.
Okay.
And I would do the dance because I know the dance and I know the song.
Oh, very good. I you know what's funny, and this is real deep here. It's funny. So one of my classic bits with my kids is I got 2 young daughters, and what I like to do is like every now and then, like maybe once every 3-4 months, I'll put up a YouTube video from Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, and it's usually step by step. And then I'll tell them, well, I choreographed this, and then and they look at me like, why? First of all, they now know that I didn't choreograph it, but now they recognize like, why is he telling us? And then now the best part is you can even at this age at 9 and 11, you can even get more outlandish. So on the latest step-by-step video, I told my daughter, I said, you see that guy in the back? That's me. And they're like, no, it's not. And I said, yes, it is. Look at it. Look at way in the back. It was not the four popular, but the kind of the semi-ugly one that's in the New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
Like the one that's not the popular, the one that didn't have the singles career, the one that wasn't the solo artist, the one that was, the ugly one.
Danny. I think it was Danny.
It was Danny. I told my kids, that's me. And they're looking at me like, no, it's not. And I said, watch. And I started doing the dance, and they always laugh in the car, or like a slow R&B song will come on, and it'll be like, I wrote that. And they just will die laughing, and they'll just die of embarrassment, and they'll just be like, Daddy, please don't tell.
For those who don't know, John has two of the funniest daughters.
Yes,
They're
yes.
completely different.
Yes.
But they together, they are awesome. They're
Yes.
absolutely awesome. I got to spend this past weekend with them. They were
Yes.
great. I ended up bringing my dog to them because they
Yes.
wanted a dog so bad.
Yeah,
I
so
think you guys
fun.
got to get them a dog.
Yeah, we're trying to do that game, so we'll hit you up with advice there. All right, that was fun. That was fun. But now we got 5 minutes left. We have to talk about it because I spent some time asking. It's just because Scott Harris royally fucked up. He fucked it up bad,
Dude.
and he fucked it up in a way that is bad. And I get it that maybe if you dig deeper, maybe the agent working with Scott maybe said, look, we'll get this done, no problem. And then when eventually Eduardo came to the understanding of everything that went with it, like maybe potentially on a deeper level, that he needed an assurance that he was going to get the extension or that he was going to get a lot of money to stay in LA, then he didn't get those assurances. And so he made I just say avoid the whole nonsense. Don't deal with a team that is 10 teams are on this dude's list. It's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of extra headaches. And I'm just like, you know what? I think the first thing you do, especially in your first year, is just trade the dude. Like, it's your first year. You get a pass if you get like a number 6 prospect instead of a number 5. Just don't deal with those 10 teams. Get Eduardo Rodriguez off this team because now you've basically gambled that he opts out, gets a lot of money, and leaves Detroit. The dude could go back to Boston, Toronto, East Coast. I'm like, that's the last thing that everybody needed was Scott Harris not trading everybody. He didn't maximize the talent that he had, and then you traded. You announce a deal that goes through with the Dodgers only to have Eduardo. You put Eduardo in a bad spot where everyone's looking at him like, you motherfucker. Who the fuck was the guy that we got back? And we all know it's going to be a top 3 prospect. We all know it was going to be somebody that's awesome. Just wait for it in 2 years because then you and I are going to blow our tops. So I just thought that in the end, you had your first test. You get a D-, and it's not right. You needed to add talent. Even if you took somebody, you need this team is so it has no depth of hitting in this organization outside of Torkelson and Green and Kerry Carpenter. 3 guys. Hopefully the guys that come up are going to do something, but you could have added 2 to 3 players maybe, and you get this, okay return for Lorenzen. But I think not dealing with Rodriguez was a major, major faux pas, especially with the way he described it, the way in which he talked about it. And I just think that if you don't, you take this gamble, I just think right now it's going to blow up in their face.
Yeah, look, I think this was his first big mistake as Tigers GM. I don't know why you try to negotiate with a team that is on his no trade list, and then you announce the trade, even though it gets rejected. Like, all of it doesn't make sense to me. And here's the thing: this was a guy who was a hot commodity. There were a ton of teams out there who wanted pitching. You could have traded him to Baltimore, who has a very good minor league system. They have a lot of prospects that you could go and you could grab. You could have worked something out with Baltimore. You could have sent him pretty much just about anywhere up and down the coast. Atlanta has a guy who plays shortstop that is supposed to be the second coming. But the problem is he's blocked in their system. They've got guys in front of him, so they don't necessarily have a spot for him. I don't know why you don't try to help them out and you try to help yourself out. Trade him there. Like, it's not necessarily the East Coast, right? But it is along the coast. Like, you could make that work. There were a lot of things that could have went different that Scott Harris just seemed to kind of drop the ball. And you know what? Going into trade deadline day, I don't know about you, but I had a ton of confidence. I was like, this guy's going to get it done. This guy seems like he's a legit baseball guy. He was completely opposite of Al Avila. He wasn't out there talking about disparaging things about guys he was trying to trade. He wasn't saying too much about conversations he's had with other people. He was out there basically straight face, just playing poker, doing all the things right. And I was like, cool, this gives me confidence. And then you see the first piece kind of falls. They were waiting for Verlander. Verlander goes, then Lorenzen goes. Lorenzen goes, then Verlander goes. And then you're just kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop with Eduardo. And it was like a lead balloon. It was like, okay, cool, he's traded. Okay, wait, no, now he's not traded. What? What is going on here? I think it's incredibly frustrating. It'll be interesting to kind of see what happens when we get to the offseason, because look, Eduardo Rodriguez could stay. He could choose to stay here again, and the contract is fine. Like, it's not like it's a bad contract. It's actually a pretty team friendly contract. And if he pitches the way he pitched for the majority of this year, you're in a good spot. If he opts out, you basically lost him for nothing, and that's some more egg on Scott Harris's face. So this is, I think we kind of have to take the wait and see approach with this, because if he stays a Detroit Tiger, it's fine. If he opts out, it's egg on Scott Harris's face, and the team missed a real opportunity to really help facilitate and help fill out their farm system, or possibly get a guy who maybe won't help this year but could come up and help next year. So it'll be interesting to see how this ends up playing out. It's what I can tell you is right now, if you're a Tigers fan, you've got to be a little bit disgruntled. You have to be a little bit upset, because this really feels like it was a blown opportunity. And that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like the Tigers missed another chance to help this organization in the long term, because they screwed up the short term. And this is kind of a calling card of Al Avila. I think Scott Harris is better than Al Avila, but this really feels like a Al Avila type move.
Yeah. Let's hope, that Scott Harris hires a good GM and they move forward. But you know what? It's crazy. Everybody's kind of talking like you aren't going to see competitive baseball until like 2026. Can you wait that long?
It's freaking nuts, isn't it?
Right. Well, what you guys know that you don't have to wait long for Detroit Sports Podcast to deliver. We bring you great audio content each and every week because it's great. I want to say this to end the podcast. Just listening overhearing how traditional media companies are now embracing podcasts. I'm like, you guys are now going to invest in it? It's 10 years too late. I'm like, now these reporters want to do their podcast and add video and try to sell it. I'm like, now? I just, my jaw was dropped. I'm like, you guys are way behind the game. It's digital and podcast and video stuff. And whew, I'm just so thankful that I get to broadcast with my cousin each and every week and talk about Detroit sports and cover the teams here locally. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anywhere you download your favorite audio content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. Can't wait to break down another week at training camp, see what's going on with these Detroit Tigers and everything going on in the world of sports in Detroit on the latest edition of Doc and Jock.